Okay, so more groundwork. Nearly seems endless, but it does lead somewhere. So, going through the explanations of why they use like the bees and the symbology of the hive to it's partly obviously to describe species and a race and more like a perspective, one that goes beyond their own order of personality types with astrology. So yeah, I have to go a bit deeper into it. Okay, so I'll read a bit about the bee. There are 3 types of honeybees within a hive: the queen, the workers, and the drones. The queen bee is the only female bee in the hive that gets to reproduce. Worker bees are all female and are all offspring of the queen, but there are males in the hive called drones. Okay, so we've got 3 different types. So I've suggested this before. You also see how I describe, like, this isn't a carrier of the bloodline of Christ in Da Vinci's eyes. They're a completely separate species and separate system. So you got the queen and the worker and the drone, and the other 2. Only 3 identifiable traits among the characters Da Vinci has used to tell his own story, and not personal to the actual disciples per se. So yeah, the queen, the drone, and the worker. So we see Da Vinci really does share a similar view to this ancient perspective. So yeah, like, here's a picture of some, like, academics will tell you, like, they're like lunch boxes for the afterlife of Tutankhamun, all marked wrong according to their contents. Pretty sure I've explained this, how there's 48 of them exactly underneath this. It's supposed to represent the zodiac, night sky represents a goddess, and then, you know, well, what's beneath the sky in the egg. Which contains the matrix of life, or the cells, whatever. And I described how 48 is a further multiple of 12, and how they're saying there's too many variations. They're talking about genetic drift, just over time, the arrow of time, how things become a bit matched and mixed, marked according to what's even on the surface of a species, what it looks like, not always equivalent to what's within. which is something that Da Vinci describes also through the Mona Lisa. So they're using their own symbology of the hive to describe that. So pretty much everything in the tomb that's apparently mistaken according to the academics, you can bet your bottom dollar it's holds one of the major keys. I even think there's a magic brick that even states it's caused the way to be mistaken. There's one from the Book of the Dead, just to show the high use of this egg symbology in the larval state, and that we are talking about genetics, personality types, and it's all in the code, all in the programs. So yeah, the three types might go into, well, maybe not this video, this is still preliminaries. Okay, so genetically speaking, probably look into, so I suggested these things represented chromosomes, because this one's highly representative of King Tut. Tells his story, his genetic code. This one, on the other hand, tells a story of its own. It's actually got multiple heads as well. Then you got the major, well, I should describe. So, actually, yeah, so I'll just point out that these two major chromosomes on each side here have been separated, and she's got the other two main identifiable copies there. So go into haploids and diploids. The terms haploid and diploid refer to a number of chromosome sets a species carries. Humans are diploid as we have two of each chromosomes. Some insects are haploid, such as male honeybee, drones, which only have one copy of each chromosome. Egg and sperm cells are typically haploid with single chromosomes. This allows sperm and egg cell to merge and form a diploid cell. Okay, so when it comes to chromosomes, we've got the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, but yeah, you see there is a separation. Like you see only one represented here. Well, we've got 3 here, and it's the same in the Last Supper where Jesus has one main trait, and yeah, he's got the point 1. There's a few mirrored meanings in that, I suppose, and how it's transferable usually is with John, but in this one particular painting the trait is with Thomas, which shows a movable trait that we all have. It's in there, but yeah. So there's an extreme similarity between Da Vinci's work. It's speaking the same story as the Egyptian one. So yeah, they use a lot of plants and animals to describe these things, and so look at Horus. I've mentioned Horus, a few times now. I should say a bit more about Horus. So we'll go to a shamanic perspective, like with the animal heads on something. Like an animal, like the head, represents a certain type of consciousness there, like, and that in itself is a species different to a human being. So what's different in animal conscious mainly to human? One thing pops to mind from shamanic stories is that animals just don't think, they don't calculate like we do. So they know things, they know, but it's not like they're calculating or summing things up. They're running on programs, like major program. And the higher senses are connected to that as well, I'm sure. So we have some, like Horus was a created being. His parents appear in human form, like these are human beings, okay. This is a god, in a way. But yeah, so hopefully being a bit understandable in what I'm trying to say and the difference of consciousness there. So yeah, it was a created species, and on about the virus within our species. I'm thinking about how it got there. I'm thinking Horus, like, you can use things to fill in DNA, and if the race is something genetically has declined and they need to create another being to continue some sort of genetic line, yet one of the main dudes is gone, so Osiris was killed, so Isis used some of his genetic material to create him, inseminate herself, whatever. So yeah, and how I've been on about the virus being an autoimmune function. Like, you can see Horus being in an internal battle and pulling out his own eye, which is like connected to a certain side of the brain, and certain consciousness as well there. So yeah, like the virus and being a double being, nearly like a separate entity. You see that viral code, is strongly associated with a separate entity in itself as well. It seems Tutankhamun is showing that. So Horus is a double being now. What I believe happened is there was Tutankhamun, so eventually they worked to separate it through genetic manipulation in their own family line, to separate whatever that code was to eventually timingly produce a more ideal being, because yeah, we see Tutankhamun in the tombs fairly crippled, and here's nothing wrong with him really. It doesn't look like this. How he looks, how they reconstruct the face and everything is not how he looks in a lot of depictions. Yeah, so difference in species and consciousness. So we have got, like, the four. There is a match there, so to me, I'm on the right track. These geniuses are speaking the same language. It's like when I talk about cloning and they had genetic knowledge, and how Horus was some sort of had some clone element, and it's the same that we've got in us. We do all share something, share a mind, in a way. So, yeah, it's interesting. And what I've got this picture up is, you see the middle stalk as the clone, and then we see something else being grafted on or grafted in. It shows a knowledge of, genetics there, and that's associated strongly with Osiris. So it's showing what they've done, why he's so revered still, even in his death. He's a savior. Yeah. So it's that other side, that twin, that these guys are progressing. Yeah, there's a lot of certain occult stuff going down with the Queen. I still have to cover. But basically that's there, like, in the divine sense, the Queen, like, this guy has these feminine traits, like, he still represents the divine feminine aspect. Comes to consciousness and stuff, like its origins in the sexes. That's how it eventually manifests, and then even genetically it can lose that essence. So the fertility they're referring to is in consciousness as well. It's not just in the genetic code. It has to be equal, equivalent. So yeah, it's a bit more about the human hive, what we're dealing with genetically, some of our genetic origins. Once again, it points to this separate consciousness within us from one of our original ancestors, and the two separate lines there, and what's in the code, relating to John, the closest to Jesus. Yeah, so something to consider maybe. Okay, see you in the next one.